Participant lines muted.
Okay, that's great. We'll begin. As I said, if you have any questions, save them until the end, and I'll unmute the line. This webinar is being recorded and will be placed on our Wonderware website later on today, so I'll share the link with you later. The webinar today is being hosted by Paul Walcott, and he's Wonderware's pre-sales consultant. He joined us in 2011. Previously, he worked for a system integrator, working across various verticals, and has 13 years experience in implementing successful Wonderware projects. So now I'll pass you over to Paul. Good morning, Paul.
Hello everybody that's joined in. As Helen has said, this is a web-enabled alarm management webinar. So, if we start off, if we talk about the current state of alarms at the moment, since the 1960s, control systems have got more complicated, which means more alarms. So operators have to deal with a lot more alarms, and an ideal situation is one alarm every 10 minutes. And if that encroaches further than, say, 10 alarms every 10 minutes, then the operator is unable to respond in a timely fashion. So why have alarms increased? Well, control systems have made the control room more complicated. Intelligent devices, where there used to be one 4 to 20 milliamp signal, now have a lot more signals coming back and alarm states and conditions, and are easier to configure. And a valve that may have had just an open and closed feedback may have a lot more. Motors that used to have just start and stop have been replaced by inverters with feedback, set points, and a lot of different alarm states. So where there used to be 2 signals, they may have 5 or even more, meaning that if you have hundreds of devices, and that's thousands of alarms and events. So what do you observe from the way the operator interacts with the system? Well, if there's lots of alarms and they're overloaded with alarms, then they over-acknowledge, just to make the management happy and also make the control room quieter. They may inhibit any noisy alarms, or they may miss important information because they're not able to respond correctly. And disasters, like the images shown on the right-hand side, have refocused the industries on being able to manage alarms. So, how does an operator respond to alarm? Well, if we look on the left-hand side, you can see in normal operation, at the start of the graph, the system may go out of normal operation into an abnormal state, and then you detect the problem, you find the cause, identify the cause, find a solution to that, and then bring the control system back into a good working state. On the right-hand side, if we take that same flow to do with alarms, then an alarm comes in, there's a period that it's not been noticed, so it's not acknowledged. The operator sees it, acknowledges it, then he has to decide what to do with it, and then bring the system back under control. And the more alarms means that he's not able to respond in a timely fashion. And what's the impact of not reacting to an abnormal condition? Well, if we look at the left-hand side, the graph, then a lot of companies invest heavily on improving the systems for optimization. So you can spend a lot of money making sure the system's running to its full capacity, but one downtime can completely wipe out all that investment that you've put to making it more efficient. And obviously that costs businesses a lot of money. In the US alone, it costs £20 billion a year. And the cause of alarms, as you can see, a majority is human error. But that's probably down to the fact that they've got too many alarms to deal with, or they can't focus their attention on getting the system correct and they're making errors. So you can have loss of production, danger to people and the environment, and even damage to the company's image if a disaster happens. So you need to understand your alarms. So alarm flooding is more than one alarm per minute. And if there's lots of these flooding, then you don't have a system that you're able to protect. And the 10 bad actors, so 20% of the alarms generated are more often that 80% of all the alarms that the system sees from day to day. And only counting alarms isn't good enough. You need to be able to improve them. And you can probably get rid of 60% of the alarms just by reporting properly. So you're able to assess your control system and how your alarm system is working. And if you want to go further, then there's more efforts needed. So being able to redesign some aspects so there aren't as many alarms. Here's an extract from the EMUR 191 guidelines. Essentially what it boils down to is that an operator shouldn't have more than one alarm every 10-minute period. So if you've got multiple operators, then obviously that's more alarms. And you don't want to have more than 10 alarms in a 10-minute period. So if we take this, so we've got the guideline, the EMUR guideline, and if we take the different verticals, then you want to be able to adjust those KPIs to suit what's expected of the business, what you would be happy with, and what you're happy that your operators can cope with. So different verticals have different alarming constraints. There's several standards out there. There's EMUR 191, which is a UK-based guideline. There's some European guidelines, and there's an American guideline, ISA S18.02, which is going towards being a standard. So why do you need to manage alarms? Well, it's important to start off with having a good alarm philosophy and identifying what alarm is, whether it's alarm or whether it's event, rationalizing those alarms, having a detailed design and implementing them correctly, and then when it's running, assess the alarms, and it's a cycle, so when things have changed, then you want to go through the same process. So what's an alarm? An alarm is something that notifies an operator of a malfunction or the condition going into an abnormal state that they need to respond to. If they don't need to respond to that, then it's not an alarm. In normal control loop, when it goes out of the conditions, if the control loop is managing that, then it's not an alarm. It's only if it's out of state for a length of time, then it becomes an alarm. And an event is anything that's recorded for traceability, but it's not necessarily anything to do with the running process. So there's different purposes of alarms. So a batch step shouldn't be an alarm, and a pump stopping is only an alarm if it's not supposed to be stopped. So why manage the alarm? Well, if the automation system becomes more complicated, there's tighter controls, which means there's a smaller window of operation, which means there's more alarms. The more sensors, the more complex those sensors, the more alarms. The increase of safety and meeting guidelines means there's more alarms. Smart networks and smart sensors, more alarms. So too many alarms means there's an information overflow, which means stress on the people who are operating and leading to human error. And human error leads to safety concerns or shutdowns or stop of production, and then that can lead to loss of downtime and money for the business. So we have web-enabled alarm management, and what that addresses is it takes from the guideline, the MUR 191 guideline and other standards, and it helps you grasp the control of your system. So it allows you to monitor and assess your system, so you know what you are subjecting your operators to. The way it integrates is it's a reporting package. It links directly to in this case, the InTouch alarm database. And because the alarm database is the same for InTouch as well as System Platform Application Server, it means that you can use it for either or both. The way it fits into the system is that you have a WAM reporting machine that has the analytics to understand what the alarms are and how your system's performing against, and it gets that data from the alarm database, and it can be controlled from a web browser. It can be administered, and also you can look at the information from a web browser. There's 20 pre-configured reports that meet a MUR 191 compliancy and the advanced part of that, which a lot of the reports you can see there, such as top number of alarms, bad actors, frequency of alarms. These are all important on assessing how your alarm system's working. If we take an example of one of the reports, what you've got is alarms and events distributed over a time period by priority. So as you can see on this, there's a black line that says the total alarms per unit of time. So this could be day, hour, or minutes if you want to, a couple of minutes. Probably day is a good baseline. And the bars show the different spread. So the target is 5%, and no more than 10% should be priority 1 alarms. Median alarms, there should only be 15% to 20%. So your alarm priorities are important. So, for example, a priority 1 alarm should be, if I don't stop the system and intervene and react to the problem instantly, then there's going to be a severe problem or downtime. Priority 2 should be the same kind of thing, but only over another time period, say, if I don't react in the next 20 minutes. And then the same for low priority as well. But they should all be alarms, and the operator should have to react to them. Another example of a report is bad actors. So these are the 20% of the alarms that are happening over 80% of the time. And this can be you can assess this weekly or bi-weekly to make sure that you're getting control of your alarms and being able to analyze what needs to be done to make sure the alarm systems are working efficiently. We talked about the MUR 191 standard. There's KPIs that can be configured within this, and you can get it to suit what your system requires. So, for example, there is 1 alarm every 10 minutes configured here, but this could be 2, 5, or whatever is acceptable for the amount of operators you've got. There's advanced analytics. So as I said, the WAM tool the WAM reporting tool allows you to, it understands the alarm system, which means it can understand patterns. So if there's waterfalls of alarms, so one alarm and multiple alarms all at the same time, then it can assess them and say, should these be grouped together? Should it be engineered so I only get one alarm when all these, because they're all joined and they all mean the same thing? And if there's bad actors, so it gives you a recommendation. So if I've got a fleeting alarm, then maybe I need it to be held on rather than to go away, so it's not distracting the operator. It's very easy to configure. As I said, you can administer it using a web page. You can also configure a PowerPoint presentation or a Word report and have that distributed to the to the people who are interested in being able to handle their alarm system. So why do you need a WAM? Well, if you're unable to work out what's happening with my alarm system, and this is the tool that allows you to instantly get access to how my alarm system's working. If I've got tools at the moment that allow me to access, but they are manual tools, or they don't go from one, I don't get them from one source, I get them from multiple sources. This means that I can consolidate that and get the reports and get the reports to the people who need it. If the tools are difficult to maintain or out of date because I have to modify them, this gets the actual alarms from the alarm system. And if I've got a procedure in place to be able to assess these, so I've got a continuous improvement department, then I can use the tools and the reports to make sure that I'm staying on top of my system. So if I improve my alarm system, then I cut down on my downtime. So a typical rollout would be you install on a machine or server, depending on the load of the system. And then you set up your KPIs for your business, set up who's going to get that information, and then the system's ready to use. And because it looks at the alarm database, then you can start from day one, you can assess how my alarms are performing. So I can plug it into a system that's already been running for years and see how it's operating. And then on to that, we can train to use advanced functions, and then you can hand it over to whoever needs to. So you can start using it today. What I'd like to do is just show you a brief outline. I've got a PowerPoint presentation that's been generated by WAM. I've got a test system, and as you can see here, this is auto-generated. I haven't changed it, I've just taken the defaults. And as you can see here, straight away I know that I've got a troublesome alarm. And you can see that I've got 92% of the alarms are this one alarm. And your baseline is your black line. I can see that it's a fleeting alarm because it's within the list of fleeting alarms. So I can have multiple reports, and over multiple time periods I can see the assessment of information. So if we look at this on a running system, then I have my WAM product running, and it's collecting data from my alarm database. So I've got my alarm logger running. Then all I do is open the website. I log in. And then I can administer the system. So I can see where it's connected, but I can also see the KPIs. So I can change the information, so I can change how many alarms per minute, or I can say how many I can have, how frequent alarms are, and if there's any standing alarm, how many standing alarms I'm allowed to have. If I look at the reports, what I can see is if I look at the most frequent alarms, then I can see that I've got a problem. If I click on this, then I can see at the bottom all the alarms that are associated with that. So this is an analytical tool. So if we take the concept of big data, being able to analyze a lot of information, this is your tool to analyze the alarm system. If I look at top fleeting alarms, I can see that there's the problem alarm. If I look at the top standing alarms, then I've got several different alarms here. So you can see what needs to be done. If I look at bad actors, then I can see that this particular one, is taking up 90% of the alarms. So you can quickly get the analytics from the system and see, and this can be a system that's been running for a long time period. So this is the WAM product, and if you want any more information, then if you contact us. We've got several other webinars coming up. One on energy, the latest version of Information Server 2012 R2, as well as making sense of your plant data. You can either go to the UK or Ireland website for the event. And here's our contact details.
Okay, that's great. Thanks, Paul. I'll now unmute the line and we'll go to questions.
Participant lines are muted.